The Restore Court started just 1 year ago in August, was when we had our first case staffing. We had been discussing the problem of minor sex trafficking here in Bexar County. And a lot of people think that sex trafficking is a very large conspiratorial enterprise where people are flown in from out of the country and, you know, trafficked across state lines and all this kind of thing. And it is that, but it is also any time someone else arranges a sexual encounter for you and makes money from it. And so that is happening all the time in Bexar County. It's boyfriends doing it to their girlfriend. It is girls that are friends trafficking each other, setting up dates for money where the third party is getting paid for it. And so I just want to be clear that it's both kinds of things. We have families that are complicit in it. They tell their kids, you know, we don't have money for food, you need to go get some. These little girls like go out on the street, and guess what they do to get money that they give to their own family. And so these are the kind of issues that we're talking about. It's not always a big pimping enterprise, you know, with like 5, 10, you know, teenage prostitutes. So I just kind of want to get that out at the beginning. So about 3 or 4 years ago, we started noticing that we had a lot of very young girls that were mainly charged with running away, failing to ID, very low-level offenses that normally you would try to divert them out of the system, you know, maybe offer some services to the family, some community-based services, and get them on their way. But they would keep coming back, and they would have lots of runaway history, or they would be able to be gone from their home for long periods of time, yet they were only 13 or 14 years old. You know, how long can a 13 or 14-year-old really stay on the street if they don't have someone else helping them stay out? And so when we started investigating a little bit further, we would get these girls on some sort of a probation eventually, and after they became more confident with their probation officer or their treatment provider, a lot of them would kind of disclose what kind of things they had been doing while they were on the run. And it turned out that they were being trafficked. Now, many of them thought they were in business with their boyfriend. You know, they didn't feel like a victim. And so then that's another thing that we have to overcome, is they don't have that traditional kind of victim feeling where they feel like someone has done something bad to them. Many times they are very upset with us that we have taken them away from this great job where they made lots of money, and now we expect them to work at McDonald's. Okay, so there's a big disconnect, and a part of it, you know, is that they've come from a family that maybe they didn't feel loved. They had this boyfriend or older adult that, you know, convinced them that their parents were jerks and they know exactly how they feel, and I'm going to help you, you know, move into a different phase in your life and help you be more grown up. And so those are the kind of people that we have been seeing as Restore got started. So back about, I guess, it'll be 2 years maybe this April, we started meeting as a group and developing this concept for the Restore Court. And we came up with a mission statement. We had an all-day meeting, you know, kind of, we called it a retreat, which is code for all-day boring meeting, right? To kind of, you know, really solidify how we wanted this court to go. And I had been doing drug court maybe for about 6 or 7 years at that time. I'd been doing the Crossroads Mental Health Court for about 5 years at that time. And I had got a lot of personal satisfaction from that because I would see the kids on a repeated basis. I would see them when they were doing well, not just when they were doing poorly. But we knew that with the Restore Court, we were going to have to kind of take a different approach, because those two programs are very much about compliance, and you spend this much time staying clean and not skipping school and your curfew, and you get to move up a phase. So we decided that with this particular population that we were going to need, is that working?
You had to go get you water.
Oh, okay. Well, that's probably easier than me having to look over there. So with this particular population, because of the sensitive subject matter, we decided that we should not meet as a group. My other two courts, we meet as a group. All the kids are there, all the parents are there, and we were in my big courtroom. And they come up one at a time, and I get a little report on how the past 2 weeks have been, and they might get a reward, they might get a sanction, but I always talk to them directly about, you know, how can we help you more, you know, or why are you acting like that when we're trying to help you, and kind of reinforce that kind of team effort mentality, where all the kids, though, kind of learn from what they see happen to all the other kids and the other parents. But in Restore, we decided to take a different approach. And instead of it being more of a time and compliance model, it would be a treatment goal achievement model. And the girls themselves, in order to move up the phases of the 3-phase system, would have to like kind of look and see whether or not they felt they had met their treatment goals. And so I meet with them individually, it's just them and their mom or their caretaker and the people that are on the treatment team, and none of the other kids are there. So it takes a lot of time because you're meeting, in that kind of a situation as opposed to, I can meet with like 15 kids in about a half an hour, like one at a time. But this is like, 15 or 20 minutes per kid. And so we have these meetings every other week, and it really forces the girls, and I have had one boy, so I'm going to say girls a lot, but I have had one boy that was a victim of trafficking, and so we're not excluding boys from this. It's just we haven't identified that many. I suspect that there are lots of them, but it's even a more touchy subject for them to admit that they've been in a trafficking situation. So the girls have to really evaluate their own treatment goals and whether or not they feel like they've mastered certain points in their treatment. And we have different goals for each phase, and they rate themselves if they've done poorly, fair, good, excellent. It's everything. Some things that are simple, like going to school, or some compliance issues, but really it's more like internalizing their treatment. Realizing their triggers, learning how to say no, and that kind of thing. And so with Restore, it was really a kind of an out-of-the-box kind of idea that I had never really done before, but we thought it was very important because a lot of kids can kind of fake it for a long time, okay? And like just get by and then get off probation. And so this really puts them in a position where they have to kind of self-evaluate, and they don't want to be told that they're not moving up. So they know if they've had like a big incident in the last 2 weeks, they can't come in there and tell me that everything's perfect, okay? But it also gives me a good basis to talk to them about what's been going on. So since 2009, we have identified 279 girls as possible victims of domestic sex trafficking. Now, we don't confirm that they're victims until they admit that they have been trafficked. So a lot of times we know they've been victims of sexual exploitation. They have a long runaway history. We know from the score on their MACI, which is a trauma inventory test that they're given when they get detained, that they score high in the trauma inventory. So we know a lot of things about them. Sometimes we even know that they got arrested in a motel room with some grown men, okay? But they still are not gonna say that they're being trafficked by a third party. So until they admit that, we don't confirm them for DMST, but they are possible. Now, of those 279, 83 have been confirmed. That after we start working with them and we get their confidence, a lot of times later on they're more forthcoming. And a couple of the girls that I've had on my caseload have actually testified in the prosecution of their perpetrators over the last few months. There have been a couple high-profile trials in federal court. And the girls have done amazingly well. And that's one of the other things that we're really trying to pump up their confidence. A lot of them have very mixed emotions about their perpetrators. They think they're in love with this man. They think their life maybe was better with this man. And so trying to get them to come around to a different worldview is sometimes very difficult. But so far we've had a couple good successes. Both the district attorney's office and the federal prosecutors have dedicated prosecution units for these particular types of cases. And those prosecutors work closely with the girls to get them ready. And so it's the same kind of thing that Lisa was talking about, that consistency, seeing the same person over and over, building trust, knowing that that person is going to be there to, make sure that things go as well as possible. And even the judges that hear these cases, have really come around to seeing these girls as victims as opposed to, just promiscuous teenagers going crazy. So we have, that's been some of the focus of this, is to really see these kids and that they are not prostitutes. They are like 13 and 14-year-old little girls. And they're very different when they have been in detention. They don't have the, makeup and hair extensions and whatever they were wearing, and they look every bit their age. And then I'll see a photo of them though from when they were, being advertised on Backpage or something, and they, look like some hoochie mama. And it is amazing that it is the same person. And so I think we as a society have to kind of recognize that no matter what they look like, they are little girls. And so that's kind of the premise that we're coming from. We have developed lots of good partnerships. I'm on the team. We have a district attorney on the team that's a dedicated DA to this particular court. I have a defense lawyer who works exclusively with this court. Probation officers, we have treatment providers. The girls that are at home on probation work with the Rape Crisis Center. We work with Child Safe. And we have a lot of good therapists that actually are employees of the Bexar County Juvenile Probation Department that work with our girls that are in the Mission Road Center. So before we got the court started, I actually took a trip down to Houston. They have a girls' court down there, and we tried to do some research and figure out what the best fit would be. Some of these courts have an all-female team, and so the court in Houston has an all-female team. But we decided that we would like to have a co-ed team because these girls need good role models that are men and realize that not all men are out there to exploit them. And so we have consciously included a few men, and we actually have gang officers from the Juvenile Probation Department on our team because they are very instrumental in providing information to law enforcement to try to go after the perpetrators. So we have a very broad view of this entire problem, and we're getting treatment for the girls and their families, but we're also having an eye on how we can prevent these perpetrators from continuing. Anyway, so we've had lots of training and we've had lots of meetings. This first year has gone very well. I won't say it has gone perfectly. A couple of the girls did very well in placement. I met with them every other week, met with their families. They went home, they were home for a while, and a couple of them have run off. I had another one that graduated. She did very well. I knew her from my Crossroads program. That's the thing. I've had a couple girls that were in my mental health program that got deeper in the system. Turns out they were trafficking victims. We moved them to Restore. And as soon as she turned 18, she left town with some guy to Dallas, and the gang unit has found her picture back on Backpage.com. So I kind of have to measure my success from the people that are successful and not really be brought down by the ones that aren't, and figure if even one person does well, that is one person more than would have if we had done nothing. And so I kind of try to take the long view of it, that even if these girls don't make these changes right now, at least now that they have tools and connection to resources so that when they are ready to make a change, they will be in a much better place to do that. Backpage.com, that is a place where you can buy a person online. You can make a date with an underage female. You can do it on Craigslist. There's a whole host of internet sites that make it very easy. Yes?
How is that legal?
They say it's free speech. The Backpage people say they don't know that these girls are underage. There's a million people turning their face away from the reality of this. When the girls are dressed up and put their picture on, they do look quite grown up. But that is one of the struggles. I think a few sites have been shut down, but then they just pop back up under a different name. And I'm not really clear how everybody knows about them. I mean, I know about them now, but I've heard of Craigslist, of course, but Backpage.com is really the number one. And the gang units here in San Antonio and Bexar County Sheriffs and SAPD, they all have teams that are constantly combing these websites, looking for girls that they know of, that they would recognize. They all use fake names, so you can't really look up their name. Trying to figure out how they can find them if they're on the run, how to get them back, and that sort of thing. But right now, it's a free speech argument. I think as a community, maybe we can bring pressure to bear to make some changes on that. Another thing that you wouldn't think of it necessarily, but these girls, they can rent hotel rooms now because you can buy a Visa card at Walmart, and so you don't have to be an adult to have a credit card to go and rent a hotel room. And then they can get some friend or whatever that's 18 to actually go in and sign up. But the idea that you couldn't do something because you didn't have a credit card in the past is no problem anymore. So, a lot of things about technology that make things easy, they also make it easy for people to buy and sell children.